Right, I'll start then. So hello, I'm Georgina Ramsden. I'm the project coordinator for the Centre for Excellence, which is Nelson Cone College Group in partnership with Runshaw College. And I'm joined, like I said, by Gail Gothard, who is our project research assistant. So at Nelson Cone College Group this year, we focused on this question. What impact does the introduction of flipped learning have on learners' experience of the GCSE Maths Reset course? So a little bit about Nelson Cone College Group. We're based in East Lancashire and we're spread across 3 sites, Nelson and Accrington, which are 16 to 19s, and then Lal, which is Lancashire Adult Learning, our main adult sort of site. GCSE Maths this year, we had 348 students across the 2 sites, and we had 380 functional skills students across the 2 sites. Our setup was slightly different this year to what we would normally do. So usually we teach functional skills from entry up to level 2, wherever they're coming in and what they need. And then our GCSE traditionally is just our grade 3 students, and we use functional to feed that. Because of COVID and because of limited numbers and staffing issues, we had to make a decision early on to almost scrap level 2 functional this year and put those students that usually would sit that, the majority of them, onto GCSE. So we had a split of grade 2 and grade 3 in our GCSE classes. So we started with our literature review, and what does the literature say about flipped learning? Well, multiple sources told us that it's beneficial, particularly for lower level learners. So that was a brilliant tick in the box for us with our research students. It increases student achievement, success and engagement, and this is just really in line with what the whole project's trying to achieve. And also, if students engage fully with the flipped learning, they spend more time in the class in discussion and group work and problem solving, which is what we really wanted to try and foster in our lessons. So why did we choose to implement flipped learning? Well, the evidence speaks for itself. It clearly works. However, there wasn't a great deal of evidence for reset learners, and we fully believe that it can work for them, and we wanted to contribute to that literature. Also, we thought it was a good opportunity to plug some gaps, particularly this year, having the grade 2 and grade 3 students in the same class. We could try and give them a bit of an opportunity to even out the playing field, give them all a more equal starting point going into the lessons. And also, we think it's great for developing independent learning skills. To successfully engage in flipped learning, you've got to be organised, you've got to be motivated, and these are skills they can then take into further education and employment. So what did we actually do? Well, the investigation was into the impact of flipped learning on learners' experience of the GCSE Maths Reset course. So as I've already said, we had 348 GCSE students that we tracked across the 2 campuses. Because of the area that we're in and the tiering system and the fact that we're pretty much online all year, we had to make the decision to move flipped learning fully online from the start. So we used an online platform that asked the students at the end of lesson 2 each week to complete a task, which was a video followed by some questions to assess their knowledge that fed into lesson 1 the following week. We implemented this across the entire scheme of work for the whole year, but we chose to just track it for 9 weeks in depth from January 2021. So that's sort of second term. So our quant data was mainly made up of our tracking from the online system, and we extracted the data for all our cohort every week. Mid-cycle, we did a snapshot survey both with students and teachers to try and inform and develop what we were doing. We had 57 students who responded to the student snapshot and 8 of our teachers to the teacher snapshot. And then at the end of the period, we then looked at qualitative collection and did 3 focus groups with 23 students and 1 teacher focus group with 7 teachers from both campuses. So what did we find?
Well, we found that on the whole, most students engage with flipped learning. The information in the graph on the left is taken from the tracking data and shows that 75% of all students attempted a flipped learning task at least once throughout the 9-week tracking period, with just over half of all students continuing to do so on a regular basis. And for clarity, we've defined regular as 3 or more times in the 9-week tracking period. The graph on the right shows the weekly engagement figures, and you can see that week on week, they do fluctuate quite a lot, really. And there's some interesting points to point out on here. The weeks in black are the first weeks following a college holiday. So engagement levels have dipped in these weeks, but I think that's probably expected following a learning break. More interesting here is the week in orange, and that is the week following the confirmation that teacher assessed grades would replace the summer examinations. And it's important to note as well that at this point we was unsure what criteria would be used as evidence for the grades, but it's obvious from these engagement figures that students were taking no risks. We also found that students who completed a flipped learning task did feel more confident when entering the lesson. As part of the mid-cycle snapshot, we asked students who completed flipped learning to rank their confidence when entering a lesson, with 1 being not very confident through to 5 being very confident. And you can see from this graph that all students rank themselves with some level of confidence, with over a third of them, 37%, ranking themselves as feeling very confident when entering the lesson. Now, this was also evident as well in the qual data that we collected from both the student and teacher focus groups. You can see on the screen here some quotes taken from the focus groups, which confirm that students did feel more prepared and that teachers also noticed a change in student-based knowledge. And just to note as well, there were quite a few occasions actually where in the focus groups where teachers commented that they didn't need to go right back to the beginning of a topic, which is brilliant here, as this year, as Georgina has previously mentioned, we've got level 2 students in here in the GCSE resit classes.
So from early on the task, it became clear that the task plays a key role in engaging the students in the flipped learning tasks. So in our snapshot survey, we asked our students if they completed the flipped learning tasks and completed them as prescribed, the video and then the questions. And 54 students who said that they did regularly complete the flipped learning, 50% of those said that they did do it how we told them to, and they did both elements. But nearly 50% again said that they only did the questions. So we then designed our focus group schedules to try and dig deeper into why they were doing this and why they weren't doing it as prescribed. And this quote on the screen kind of encapsulates what the majority of students were feeling. So said we could do the ones, meaning the questions we do know, and then watch the video just for the ones that we're struggling on. And it became really clear that they just felt really comfortable in just trying exam questions and going with it and not watching the video. And upon reflection at this point, we thought, well, maybe this is because they've already seen this information before. Unlike, like, for example, if you've got an A-level cohort, if this is new information that they're learning through flipped learning, unlike research students, they've already seen this before. So maybe we need to take a little bit of a different view to what we're asking them to do and how we're asking them to do it. And also the teachers did recognise that with everything that was going on at the beginning of the year, they didn't get to know the platform well enough. So maybe they couldn't actually support the students through encouraging them to do the tasks as prescribed because their knowledge wasn't what they needed it to be. So sticking with the tasks, like I said, the online platform asked us to do a video and then questions. This was focusing on the maths topic itself, and we've split these graphs into topics. However, sometimes, as well as that, there was an added level of skill where it asked the students to use an inbuilt maths tool. And by that, I mean, for example, a ruler or a protractor or a drawing implement. So if you look on the left-hand side, this graph shows the average flipped learning score for topics. And on the right, it shows the percentage of students who completed the flipped learning tasks by topics. We want to home in on the distance time task, which is in orange. So this had the questions following the video, but it also asked them to use and was quite heavy on asking them to use the inbuilt maths tools. And you can see on the graph on the left that the spread of scores for this task in particular was significantly lower than all of the other topics. However, when you look on the right-hand side, the actual engagement levels were pretty much on average. So that tells us, and was supported by the focus groups from the students, saying that when you add that extra layer and they're not completely sure how to use the tools, they weren't able to successfully achieve a higher score in that task. So we can't talk about this year without talking about the struggles with motivation that students have felt. And sometimes it was really sad to read some of the things that they were saying. Sometimes they just felt like they couldn't be bothered to do the work and they weren't in the mindset to do it. And the teachers were also sort of commenting that because of the area that we were in and the tier system that we found ourselves in and the constant online learning, they found it difficult to get students into a routine. And it's something that we really pride ourselves on at Nelson & Colne College Group, getting the research students into that routine. And it was something we struggled with. And I really hope going on to next year that we can bring that back in and support those learners. So lastly, I just want to talk about this final theme, the concept of flipped learning, and how it needs to be really clear from the start. This was something that another CFEM warned us about before we actually embarked on this research project. And although we considered it, I don't think upon reflection we actually gave it as much thought as it needed. So in our quant data, we split our engagement levels by Campus 1 and Campus 2, and you can see at Campus 1 that the engagement was clearly higher throughout the entire tracking period than at Campus 2. The focus groups kind of told us a little bit why. So for example, in one focus group with students from Campus 1 in particular, the students reported feeling comfortable with the lesson once they'd completed the flipped learning. They felt like they knew that what was coming, and that, like I said, that gave them a comfort and a confidence in being able to engage with the lesson. And these students belonged to a class who had an average of 73% completion rate. That teacher was encouraging them from the start to ensure that they were doing the tasks regularly, and that was feeding into the lessons. And it clearly shows because the students were saying that they felt more comfortable with the lesson having completed it. Then we go to another focus group where a student suggests that we should just do the tasks after the lesson, going back to that sort of traditional format of homework. So to us, that just screams that that student wasn't explained the full concept and the benefits of flipped learning. Looking at the teacher focus groups, we had 2 teachers from Campus 1 describing all of the wonderful ways that they were engaging students and how they were doing regular messages, and then they were doing targeted teams, chat messages. They accessed the text tool at college, whereas another teacher from Campus 2 simply said to us, well, the students won't do it anyway. And that sort of negative attitude just shows the different messages that the students were getting. Again, maybe we needed to give a little bit more investment up front, and upon reflection, we feel like maybe the research team did a little bit too much planning for the teachers and we didn't give them enough buy-in. But also those mixed messages just show that it really affects the engagement. So this slide just kind of encapsulates what I've been talking about and some of the barriers we faced this year. COVID, like all of us, threw up a lot of barriers, but we're still really proud of what we managed to achieve. And because of the area that we were in, we kind of just planned to be online and went with it. Online did impact the flipped learning, and some teachers' skills probably weren't as good as they were required to be, and also teachers felt that their relationships were harder to build, so they couldn't really ascertain the issues that students were having with flipped learning as well as they can face to face. And going forward, if we move away from that online, we need to really sort of drill down into what we're actually asking the students to do and really reflect on the resit journey and make sure that is reflected in the tasks. And also the online platform, interestingly, was really good for our SEND learners. So if we move away from that, we really need to keep that at the forefront of our mind. So lastly, we've got quite a lot of recommendations in our report, but these are our 3 take-homes for anybody that's wanting to implement this. Teachers need to be on board and engaged from the start. Like I said, upon reflection, we maybe did too much for our teachers. We need to work on over the summer, giving them a really good buy-in and an investment into this so they believe in it. And particularly if we're going to use online, or even if we're not, we need to invest in their skills so they can then support their students. We need to really make sure that the task reflects the resit journey and consider that this isn't the first time that they've seen this content, and maybe that has had an influence on their engagement levels. And like I said before, clear expectations that are enforced. The teachers who, from the outset in that first term, were on the students, engaging them with it, making sure they were completing it and using it in lesson 1 each week, had clearly higher levels of engagement. They weren't perfect, but they were a lot higher. Whereas those that didn't, when we started tracking them in the second term, they'd just fallen off the grid and they couldn't bring them back. So consistency is really key. And other than that, I'd just like to say thank you, and we'll open it up to questions.